Devastated by the news of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, and we send our thoughts and prayers to those impacted by this tragedy. We thank the brave first responders and the men and women actively working on rescue efforts. Baltimore, we're a tight-knit and resilient city. Together, we will get through this. The Ravens did the same. It reads, we are grateful for the first responders and local leaders who are on the scene to lead the search and rescue efforts and to support those families who have been most directly impacted. We know that the Baltimore community will stand together in the aftermath of this tragedy. A number of local professional athletes also took to social media for the same type of messaging. Lamar Jackson wrote on X, for the people and their families that was a part of the collapsing bridge in Baltimore, my heart, thoughts, and prayers are with you all. Now to the NFL news of the day. League owners voted and passed a new kickoff rule, a move to safely bring the play back to action. The rule will move players back downfield to limit major collisions. Only the kicker and return specialist can move until the ball hits the ground or player. They will be lined up much differently. The big change, no more fair catches. It basically forces the ball to land inside the 20 and be returned. Onside kicks are allowed, but have to be told prior to happening. The rule goes into effect for this season, and 2024 will be a trial season for these new kickoff rules.
All right, Morgan, thank you. And coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock tonight, the search for victims continue in the water. Fox 45, but we have an update for you coming up in just a moment. Our live coverage of the Key Bridge collapse continues just a moment.
Live from WBFF TV in Baltimore, this is breaking news.
Everybody has stepped up. Everybody has raised their hands to serve. And I can tell you, it is so deeply appreciated. It's so deeply felt.
So the path to normalcy will not be easy. It will not be quick. It will not be inexpensive. But we will rebuild together.
We are continuing our breaking news coverage of the Key Bridge collapse. You are taking a live look at what remains of the bridge, now almost completely submerged in the Patapsco River. Governor Wes Moore addressing the state alongside Senator Ben Cardin, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and Mayor Brandon Scott, among other leaders. Now, 6 people are still unaccounted for. 2 people, though, rescued from the water. 1 refused treatment, and the other has been released from shock trauma. Officials say around around 1:30 this morning, a cargo ship called a mayday before crashing into the bridge. That bridge that gave authorities time to limit traffic onto it. Thank you so much for staying with us tonight. I'm Mary Bubala. We have team coverage of this disaster as it unfolds. Maxine Stryker has a look at what happened, and Mackenzie Frost is looking at what went wrong. But first, we're hearing from the head of the construction company who employed the missing workers. He tells us all 6 of them are now sadly presumed dead. Fox 45's Jessica Babb just got off the phone with him. Jessica joins us live with this very sad news for these families. What a devastating day and wait for them. Jessica?
It absolutely is devastating. And like you said, I just got off the phone with Jeffrey Pritzker. He's the executive vice president for the construction company that was performing this work on the bridge when it collapsed. And you could just hear in his voice how really sad and tragic this is. He says 7 people from their construction team were on that bridge. 1 of them survived. They were discharged from the hospital, but he says 6 of them are presumed dead. And again, he is calling it a tragedy. And I'm just going to step out of the way so you can see what we're seeing. This is the view from Fort McHenry tonight. And he says the construction company, Bronner Builders, they have contracts for Maryland state highways and bridges, and they were just doing some routine maintenance, filling potholes and doing concrete work. And he never thought that routine work would turn into something so heartbreaking like this. And again, I spoke with him on the phone, and this is what he had to say. Take a listen.
The owner of the company has met with every family of the individuals who apparently are deceased. He spent all night investigating and hoping that they would be found alive. They weren't, so he spent all morning meeting with every family member of these individuals. They're all wonderful employees, good employees, and it's really a heartbreaking loss to Bronner Builders.
He didn't want to give out too much identifying information about the victims right now, given the sensitive situation. But he did say they had families and were long-term employees. Obviously, you heard him say that they were really great employees to have. And again, says it's a tragedy he couldn't have imagined, but said that they're meeting with the families and trying to just offer that support where they can, given the circumstances. And as we've been reporting, after talking with officials from Shock Trauma earlier today, 1 patient was discharged. He was part of that construction team as well. So that is a little bit of positive news. But I do also want to clarify, there were 8 people that were involved. 1 person walked away, but only 7 people, the person who went to the hospital and 6 others unaccounted for, were the ones who were part of the construction company. And so we're going to continue getting some more information for you, but right now we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Jessica, thank you. That's a good clarification for us to know. Now let's go to Maxine Stryker. She's been live near the bridge all day long. Maxine, give us the very latest from your standpoint.
Well, Mary, despite learning that news that those workers are now presumed dead, I can tell you it's still very much an active search and rescue here at the scene. We can still see those helicopters, the Coast Guard aviation going back and forth, and we know they're also in the water as well, presumably still searching for them. At this point, it has been about 17 hours, and as I've mentioned, that water is certainly cold. Governor Moore joined here earlier by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Johnny Olszewski, Mayor Scott, and several members of the congressional delegation. Moore says that they spent the day praying with the families and spending time with first responders. You can only imagine this has been an excruciating day for them. Take a listen to the governor earlier.
This is very much still a search and rescue mission. We are still actively looking for survivors. We know, and that's the pledge we've made to these families, and this is still very much an active search and rescue mission. And there is not a single resource that we will hold off on deploying. I have already authorized the deployment of everything from air, land, and sea resources to make sure that this search and rescue operation is carried out to its fullest intent. The second thing I want to remind people is that this will not be short. There's going to be a long road.
Now, that was the governor at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. We have not heard from them since, so presumably we do not know any of those bodies have been recovered at this time, any of those construction workers. The big question of the governor and the NTSB today is, were any cars on this bridge at the time of the collapse? We heard that there may have been in dispatch audio, but no one here has confirmed that. But we do know some quick work kept more vehicles off the bridge. When that ship called Mayday, they were able to stop some vehicles from going on here, saving lives. Now, the NTSB confirming the ship was called the Dolly. It is a Singapore registered vessel, and they're working to verify how many people were on board there and their status, telling us they're standing back and basically letting the Coast Guard continue their search and rescue efforts, so they won't board the vessel today. Here's a listen to that National Transportation Safety Board presser earlier this afternoon.
I will have more information about the recorders tomorrow. We chose not to board the vessel today to allow some time for the search and recovery, which we did not want to interfere with. That is the first and foremost.
So a lot of questions about those recorders. We also wanted to ask about any automation on that cargo ship, but not a lot of answers from the NTSB. We are told that structural engineers will come and look at the bridge, what's left of it here, and they'll also study the history of that ship and safety protocols that were in place. They're in touch with the director of the National Transportation Safety Board in Singapore, even, who is expected to come here tomorrow, but say it's still too soon to estimate how long it will take to clear that channel and open the port. Obviously, it's going to be a very long time, as you heard from Westmore. Everyone reiterating that that can all wait until these workers are found. Again, it's not clear tonight if any of them have been recovered at this point, as we are hearing that they are all presumed dead. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. We are also hearing from witnesses at the scene, including one worker who says a shift change saved him from disaster.
I was working in the bridge doing the same.
O sea que en la compañía pasa que un tiempo lo tiran a uno de noche y otro tiempo de día. A nosotros ya lo habían cambiado al día y ellos fueron en la noche y ya entraron de noche.
He was recently changed to the morning shift, so they rotate.
So you might have been there if your shift had been the same.
Pudo haber estado ahí.
Pudimos haber estado ahí los demás compañeros también.
Yeah, I could have been there, like my coworkers. He feels really sad for everything that happened. They are his co-workers, his friends that he has known for a long time, and it's heartbreaking everything that is happening right now.
Well, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our team coverage tonight with a closer look at how this tragedy happened in the first place and what could have been done to stop it.
Well, Mary, there are still so many unanswered questions as this investigation continues to unfold. But we spoke with several engineers and marine experts about what may have gone wrong this morning. As the Singapore registered cargo ship named the Dolly made its way out of the port of Baltimore around 1 o'clock Tuesday morning, video showing the lights on the ship carrying some 10,000 containers starting to flicker, smoke billowing from the ship, and at 1:28 a.m., the ship hit a pillar of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and the emergency calls immediate.
213 dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down. Stars, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
Reports indicate the crew on board issued a mayday call saying the ship lost power and propulsion. That mayday call halting traffic on the bridge. The immediacy clear from emergency crews on the ground.
Do we know what traffic was stopped? I can't get to the other side, sir. The bridge is down.
This shocking video shows the catastrophic collapse of the bridge.
The bridge was a 3-span continuous truss bridge.
Associate teaching professor at Johns Hopkins, Rachel Sangri, explains the truss bridge has 3 continuous spans, but that means the piers in the water serving as pillars were structurally critical.
When one of those piers was removed, all 3 of those spans came down.
Waleed Abu Qadir, adjunct professor at the Milwaukee School of Engineering, went to grad school in Delaware and says he's very familiar with the Key Bridge.
It takes one ship to, to break this bridge like this.
And that's what happened here. Abu Qadir says fenders or barriers could have been installed around the base of the pillars in the water to prevent a ship from making contact, like this situation.
It would have made a difference, but how common does a ship hits, these critical places?
With questions surrounding just how this could have happened, this video remains evidence of what experts like Captain John Martino says will be critical in finding those answers.
Chances of there being a navigation error are remote.
Leading to more questions about what went so tragically wrong, ending in a scene like this, one many will likely never forget.
Now, online databases show 27 inspections have been done on this ship since 2015. In 2016, after a crash at a Belgian port, the ship suffered hull damage, impacting its seaworthiness. And in June 2023, another inspection found deficiencies with some propulsion and auxiliary machinery. Mary?
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, 6 people, of course, still missing, and first responders have rescued 2 people from the water. One of those people was released from shock trauma. Shock trauma leaders treating this as a potential mass casualty event.
About 2 o'clock this morning, we received a notification from the field for a possible mass casualty incident where we would be inundated with multiple injured patients at the same time. We immediately notified them that we could take 10 critically injured patients all at once. We then received the patient that came shortly thereafter, approximately 2:30 or so, and continued to assure that we had our capability to surge beyond that capacity.
We will have continuing coverage of the Key Bridge collapse coming up next, and then later tonight on Fox 45 News at 10. You can also find all of our coverage on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
I'm Janae Bowens in Washington. Let's look at the economic impact as a result of the bridge collapse in Baltimore.
The weather impacts have been around for it, and we're going to see more impacts coming. We have rain and stronger winds on the way starting tomorrow. That will have impacts to just the Key Bridge operations, but also the Orioles home opener. We're going to tell you what we will be seeing then, and also for the weekend ahead coming up.
All right, we're going to recap what we know now. The Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed around 1:30 this morning. The crew on the ship that caused the collapse called a mayday, saying they were losing power just before the crash. But they were unable to stop the ship. The boat barreled into the bridge, taking down the entire structure. A 7-man construction crew on the bridge was knocked into the water. 2 have been rescued. Rescue and recovery teams, though, still looking for those 6 workers this evening, although their company tonight said they are presumed dead. The bridge collapse in Baltimore has halted shipping at the city's port until further notice. National correspondent Janae Bowens takes a closer look at the potential impact on the supply chain and the economy.
The shocking collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge after being hit by a cargo ship has suspended vessel traffic at the port of Baltimore. Ships headed to Baltimore, now in a holding pattern, 20 miles to the south in the Chesapeake Bay.
The problem is not only the ship, but you need to also remove the remnants of the bridge from the seaway, because as long as that bridge is there, nobody can use the port of Baltimore.
There are fears this halt in operations could hurt the economy.
The port of Baltimore is one of the nation's largest shipping hubs. And I've been there a number of times as a senator and as a vice president. It handles a record amount of cargo last year.
The port handles the largest volume of cars and light trucks, heavy farm and construction machinery, and imported sugar in the U.S.
You will see large hikes that are temporary in a few select goods. We may especially see that, for example, with imported cars in the Northeast.
The impact could also be global. Last year, the port handled a record 52.3 million tons of foreign cargo, worth $80 billion.
Well, unfortunately for a lot of our friends and allies around the world who rely on us for our coal exports, this is going to hit them as well, because they are no longer going to be able to receive those shipments in a timely manner.
But some experts say rerouting ships to other East Coast ports will blunt some of the economic and supply chain impact.
It's very likely all the cargo that went through Baltimore is going to be redirected to go through Norfolk and through New York and New Jersey.
And as vessels are rerouted away from the port of Baltimore, we can expect shipping delays. There's no word on how long vessel traffic will be suspended. Mary?
Janae, thank you.
All right, we're going to talk about the next weather maker because it's going to have an impact on what's going on with the operations. Let's take a look at what it was like last night at the time of the incident. We had light winds, although there were some winds out of the east and northeast. Don't think that was as major of a factor to the incident cause. Now, the effects are the worst parts, and we're talking about water temperatures of 47 degrees, the air temperature 37, and for anyone that went into the water, you can only stand this for perhaps 30 minutes before the hypothermia sets in, and it can be lethal as little as an hour. So that is an unfortunate thing given the time of the year to have such a problem, and of course with anyone that may be trying to be recovered from those search efforts. All right, so the next thing is also the cleanup, the recovery, and that's going to take time, but it can be hindered by weather as well, and we have a big system on the way in. It's going to bring some rainfall, but also some stronger winds that are going to shift around, and it could cause a little bit of trouble, if not some delays to some of the things that they're going to be trying to do here. All right, so we're talking Wednesday. Scattered showers will be around. Winds not terrible, but we will see them increasing a bit, especially as we get into Thursday. Looks like Thursday is going to have a bigger rain event, as we will see widespread rainfall, especially throughout the morning and around midday. By the afternoon and evening, we should start to see some improvement, say after around 5 o'clock, where most of the rain is going to start pushing out. And this time, of course, is very critical for any of the Orioles fans hoping to see the game, but that's only likely going to happen if they can delay the game by at least a few hours tomorrow, as it looks like things are dry out as we move into the evening hours. Now, winds a big factor, as we had talked about. Again, we're still seeing them out of the east tomorrow, but south changing to the north, actually, as we go into Thursday, and they'll be increasing in speed even more as we move into Friday. We could see gusts over 30 miles per hour. Will definitely slow down some of those operations with what they're going to be doing. So weather a big factor, not necessarily in the cause, but more in what is going to happen in the coming days, weeks, and months of this incident. So we're talking again at the ballpark at Camden Yards. The Oriole Park is really not going to look so good if first pitch is trying to get underway at 3 o'clock, but if it can be delayed, we'll see some help here, and it'll start to dry out towards the later evening. So we'll see if they report on that. But meanwhile, Friday looking a lot better, and the weekend definitely looking better with highs in the 60s. Looks like Saturday and Sunday we may get away without it raining on us for a change, so Easter looking decent.
Gerard, thank you. We're continuing to follow the breaking news of the Key Bridge collapse and catastrophe. After the break, how local businesses are feeling the impact of the port's closure. Well, the Port of Baltimore is one of the nation's busiest. Shutting it down will have just huge economic impacts. Mitch Blocker from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. has details on that.
More than 840,000 cars and trucks shipped through the Port of Baltimore last year.
I mean, these cars are not sitting here if they didn't come on a ship through Baltimore.
That's right.
Many landed at local car dealerships, including the 30 Jamie Darvish's family owns and runs.
What we're hoping is going to happen is that there's enough of a supply in the depots, and that's already, in the port, that, that ripple effect will be weeks down the road, and by the time it hits, they can double up with, additional shipments.
Darvish isn't only preparing for his own supply disruptions. The parts to keep our cars and other industrial equipment running will have to find new, longer, more expensive routes. The chair of the Washington Area New Car Dealers Association expects that to cost his colleagues and customers eventually.
This will affect us weeks down the road. And every day that goes by that port is closed, it creates more of a backlog and more of a shortage.
We saw firsthand how important Baltimore's port is to our regional and American economies when we visited last fall. U.S. Customs and Border Protection gave 7 News exclusive access to its inspection process.
But when it comes to autos, comes to roll-on, roll-off, vehicles, heavy machinery, cars, trucks, we're number one on the East Coast.
The port's Border Protection Director described balancing security with keeping cargo and business moving.
You're kind of in a sweet spot.
Yeah, you anything being imported into this country can get basically anywhere in this country within just a few days.